talking to Shawn Eckert of the St. Charles Consulting Group today about integrating knowledge content with workflow. Shawn, you talk a lot about practicing what we preach. What's the most common difficulties companies face when trying to integrate process design with knowledge content?
So we found that many companies have a lot of knowledge assets. They have a lot of training materials. And once we help companies to make their process visible and get a common language around what they're actually doing within a process, a challenge has been, how do I integrate those assets or those training items with the actual process itself? So in doing that, we've been working to create a tool to allow companies to put that content in a place where users can essentially trip over it in their daily job.
Yeah, and what's the when these companies when you start your process and you're like, we've got to get integrated, we've got to make this happen. In your experience, what's the number one thing when companies have success? What's the first thing they do that ensures that success? If you told them you got to do this one thing, what would that be?
The one thing that we always focus on is getting to a common language around that process, making sure that both at the executive vice president level as well as the worker level, everyone is speaking the same language. Everybody is calling items the same thing. It's right so that within the context of their job, they can all identify and work on items using a common language. So we call that process visibility, and what we do is we socialize that language amongst the team to ensure that going forward, everyone is doing it the same way.
Do you sense that some companies have a fear of trying to integrate this process, that maybe it seems overwhelming to them and they don't even know where to start?
I think there is a little bit. However, I just think a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And at the worker level, there's a lot of documentation. There's a whole lot of context around how do I do my job today. And at the strategic level, there are goals. Well, getting those to all marry together and fit within a common process is usually where we find the gap.
What are some simple, you talked about in your presentation some great simple things that can be done to execute content and process integration. Can you give me some examples?
Yeah, we found that a lot of organizations have tools in place, be it a content management system like a SharePoint environment, or maybe they have a document focus system, or they have an ERP system, but they've never organized that around the process. They've always kind of came from the bottom up, and they understand how to execute a purchase order or an invoice or a specific engineering activity. But when we actually connect that with the process, we found that by putting it onto what we say one piece of paper or one deck or one application where it's all visible, suddenly everyone is talking the same language and can move forward.
Yeah, and when you see that, does that sort of, when you put that in front of people, does it sort of really open their eyes? Aha moment?
It is a big aha moment, and we've found over the last 15 or so years of consulting that everyone gets excited when they see that. When an executive can hold a piece of paper or look on one screen and see an end-to-end process and say, we're going to focus on this specific activity where we're going to get the best leverage for our investment, everybody get excited. They start to rally the troops around that one activity or that one area or those 2 or 3 areas that will actually move the lever. And so from that, the biggest challenge we found is that people say, well, now what? Now that I know this, what do I do? So operationalizing that content and that process so they can do something with it has been our latest effort.
And to wrap up, one final thing, as you look at the integrating content management, people use different tools and templates. What do you see on the horizon as maybe the next big thing that people are going to be talking about when they're trying to get this all integrated and get this, as you say, to move the lever in a certain way? Is there something on the horizon that you say, oh, that may be the next big thing, or what people are going to be interested in?
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is, as we've sort of cracked the code to be able to take content and integrate it with process through systems like SharePoint, we're finding that the next focus is, how do I socialize that? How do I leverage the mediums that people are currently using, be it Yammer or Twitter or other social tools, and bring that content to that level? Help people to collaborate on it through wikis and through other social mediums so that everyone has access to information as soon as possible.
Thanks, Shawn. Appreciate it.